Hello everybody, thank you so much for taking the time to either refresh or watch this video for the first time to learn about how the day is going to unfold this Saturday, because it's Peterborough Pulse 2018, woo woo! So let's get started. Radios, let's go over who's getting radios. First aid, we're going to have two first aid radios. Police, we'll have one. I'm going to have a radio, Sue's going to have a radio, so is Terry, and the committee leaders that are taking on a zone leadership role this year. Last year was a lot of confusion about who has a radio, and so let's just go over this one more time. Who gets a radio? Everybody except for June has a radio on event day. One thing that we touched base on yesterday when it comes to radio etiquette was that last year there was a lot of long-winded statements and it was hard to communicate. We weren't being concise in our language. We weren't using proper radio protocol. So when you get your radio on Pulse Day, the first thing you want to do is make sure that you're on channel 1. Channel 1 is for the repeater. We're hoping that it's going to be working fine. If not, then we will default to channel 2, where we'll just be radio-to-radio communications, and the coverage might not be as great. So once you have a radio and you need to say, send a message, you want to make sure to include your name and the person's name that you're trying to contact at the beginning of that radio message. An example would be Hillary to Terry. Hillary to Terry, do you copy? And then Terry would say, Terry here, copy. And then I would start with my message. So I would say, Terry, just wondering if you have an extension cord, an extra one. Over. So I would end that message with over, because over indicates that I'm done talking. Now, when you're using the radio, make sure that you give some time between responses, because you don't want to cut that person off that's speaking with you. Also, if you're holding it and talking while they're talking, the messages are getting blocked. Now, once you receive a message, the correct response would be copy or copy that. Okay? Also, when you're using a radio, make sure that you are listening to all the messages, because you might not hear your name the first time. And if you need to make a communication to a specific person or to everyone, be very clear at the beginning of that communication thread. So, Hillary to all zone leaders, Hillary to all zone leaders. And then it's the intention that everybody that's in a zone leader role from the committee side will know what I'm talking about, or know that I'm trying to talk to them, okay? All right, parked cars. So whatever your role is on event day, if you're noticing a parked car, the best thing you can do is write down the make, model, license plate, and location. You're gonna wanna radio Sue if you have a radio, and if not, you're gonna wanna text her. Text her with all that info so that she has all the bits and pieces without having to physically go to the spot and collect the make, model, and license and location info. That way we'll be more efficient in identifying parked cars and ensuring that we can relay that information to the towing company on event day. So morning duties, who's doing what? 7 to 8 a.m., myself and Kate, we're going to be dealing with the setup crew. We're getting about 15 helpers coming out. We're going to be decorating and delegating all morning. I'm also going to be handling the first aid responders, and Kate's going to be doing a radio meetup with the police in her zone for 8 a.m. So in the morning, if you need help and you have a radio or you're just using your cell phone, make sure you contact me, because I might be able to shuffle a few folks down. We have a couple float showing up with the setup crew, and I have no problem putting them on tents or putting them on whatever priority you see fit. Other early morning duties. The DBI, they're going to be dealing with a lot of music setup, plug-in access, as well as DBI tent and table setup. So they'll be pretty busy, probably starting earlier than 7 and ending hopefully before 10 a.m. Vehicles, barricades, and police. That's a Sue duty. Sue's going to be checking in with the police when they arrive to make sure that they're set up in their proper locations. She's also going to be identifying barricades along the route to make sure that they're there in the right spots. And if not, then liaisoning with Public Works to make sure that we get them in a timely fashion. She's also going to be doing vehicle checks and dealing with towing. Lindsay and Tegan are going to be dropping off tent supplies in the Q band for Pulse. So just Pulse stuff. And while they're making their way through the route, they'll be dropping off radios to everybody that needs one. So who's where? Sue, Terry, myself, and June, we're going to be roaming all day, and the rest of our committee will be designated in zones. So if you need to take a break or if you just want to explore, make sure you tag one of us on the radio, so that way we can pass the baton. It's really important that we have somebody in a red shirt at every zone at all times. That way if something were to happen, we can communicate in an effective way and get that message out to where it needs to go. So who is providing some zone leadership? We have in Zone 1, Tegan, Zone 2, Joel, Zone 3, Lindsay, and Zone 4, Kate. So just to visualize it, here's our zone breakdown. Every zone is comprised of 2 blocks, so it's a lot less full on than previous years. We're hoping a lot smoother. So committee members that are helping out in zones are going to have 2 block leaders helping out. For Zone 1, Tegan has Vanessa and Jessica. For Zone 2, Joel will be working with Pete and Annika. For Zone 3, Danica and Alana will be helping out for Lindsay. And Zone 4, Naomi and Sylvia with Kate. Now, our wonderful block leaders will be coming to the event for 8 a.m. If you are in a zone leadership role, please try to make sure to be there for 8 a.m. That way you can meet them, introduce yourself, and help them with tent setup. It's our intention that tents will be set up mainly by the block leaders, but it takes more than one hand to get a tent up and erected in a timely fashion. So, lend a helping hand, tops 15 minutes, unless you're doing the 20 by 20. And during that time, I'm going to have some setup crew members arriving at each zone to be that extra hand to make sure that the tent's up. There's a lot of moving pieces for how the planogram and setup's supposed to be under that tent. That's a block leader problem. So once you have the tent physically erected, feel free to move on. For zones 1 and 4, there's going to be a barricade meetup at 9:30. And so this role of volunteer check-in, that's kind of like an ongoing thing throughout the day at these designated times. So you want to meet your barricade groups and pass them their kits. The block leaders should have that all organized for you by 9:30 when you get there. And inside those kits will be their safety vests and the t-shirts that they need and any sort of waivers that might need to be signed off on for those volunteers that arrive on event day. Okay, now that's just for the adopted barricaders in zone 1 and 4. The next wave of volunteer check-in happens at 10 and 12. At 10 a.m. and 12 p.m., it's going to be about 15 to 20 minutes of shuffling roles, and your job is to let the block leaders lead the process. They're going to be doing a roll call. They'll have a little cheat sheet on event day where they'll sign everybody in, make sure everybody that hasn't signed a waiver signs one off, allocating t-shirts, and providing the volunteers for Pulse Day during the Pulse event with their volunteer kits based on role. Inside those kits will be instructions, and it will be the volunteers' job to read them over and acclimate themselves to the role. During that time, if there's any shuffling, we're going to be using the radios to communicate that on the block leader's behalf. There's going to be 2 block leaders at each info tent, and they'll be able to share those responsibilities. Don't feel like you need to jump in, but if they are struggling through it, by all means help them. And then at 12 p.m., we're going to have another shift change. So make sure you are at a zone tent if you are a zone leader helper from a committee standpoint for the 10 and 12 p.m. So just another note on the barricade meetup, that's only for zones 1 and 4, and that's happening at 9:30 a.m. Now, right after you're done with your info tent erection, once that's set up and ready to go for the zone leaders to then do all the decorations, you're free to do whatever. But at 9 o'clock, you want to make sure that you distribute waiver kits throughout your zone. The waiver kits will be at the zone info tent, and it should be in an organized fashion. You will have a map and a list of everybody that needs their waiver. So you just kind of make your way around. Some folks may or may not be super familiar with the process, so give yourself some time on this between 9 and 10 to do that. At 10:15, you want to move away from your volunteer check-in at the info tent to doing your safety check. So Pulse has already started, and hopefully everybody's set up, and that's a perfect time to do a safety check. That way we'll be able to have a really good look at the setup of each activity. If we do this prior to 10:15, activity leaders might not have all the things out yet. So like, for example, their tent weights. They're still getting set up. So you want to give yourself some time on this. It might take you till 11, or it might take you, 20 minutes if everybody paid attention to the instructions and made sure that there weren't any trip hazards or anything like that. You're going to have a safety checklist as part of your little clipboard, along with a map of your zone. For a full map, that's going to be in the zone binder. We only want you to focus on that 2-block radius. If you need to know where other things are, by all means, pop into the info tent and have a look. So at 11 a.m., everybody, regardless of role, if you're in a committee leader zone role, if you're a roamer, you want to make your way to the clock tower for our media meetup. Pizza is at 12 o'clock sharp. Lindsay and some block leaders will be coordinating that with the intention that pizza will be at the info tents for 12. And so once the pizza's there, this is the same time that we're going to get our afternoon shift showing up. So the intention would be that afternoon shift volunteers will be greeted with pizza, have an opportunity to meet the volunteers that are in their role earlier, and there's a 1-hour overlap. So the intention of this 1-hour overlap is that they can shadow each other and help with some knowledge transfer, so that when our morning shift crew is done at 1, the afternoon shift feels super confident in what they're doing and will be able to execute their role with ease. So afternoon duties, if you are a roamer, if you are a zone leader, it doesn't matter. There will be some break relief for our block leader crew. It's a 2-hour break, similar to last year. And in Zone 1, we're going to have Tegan and Sue. In Zone 2, we're going to have Joel and Terry. And in Zone 3, we're going to have Lindsay and Hillary. For Zone 4, Kate's going to run the whole day, and I will be giving her a break earlier in the morning. So it's up to you to sort of delegate how you want to break up that relief time. If Sue is feeling really, confident to do the whole 2 hours, she can. Or if Tegan wants to do 1 hour and Sue does the other, I'll leave that to you. I don't want to add another timeline, but we definitely need to provide that relief for those block leaders. Head counts. I'm going to be coordinating the head counts. They will be happening at 11, 1, and 2. I know there's a lot of times popping up here. Don't worry. Your clipboard will have a specific breakdown of where you need to be when. I'm also going to be running a master timeline and using the radio to communicate that throughout the day so that people are aware of what needs to happen and when. So photography plans. That's a Hillary problem, and I'm going to be coordinating that at 12:30. Just another breakdown of where the zones are, and those stars identify where our info tents are going to be dropped off. So Zone 1, we have Tegan managing that, and the info tent is being dropped right in front of the candidate post. Zone 2, that's Joel, with the big 20 by 20 tent just off to the side along Charlotte, near the corner of George and Charlotte. Zone 3 will be a Lindsay area, and the info tent will be right in front of the RBC Financial. And Zone 4 for Kate, she's setting up right beside the Confederation Park. So once Pulse is sort of up and running and we're heading towards the end of the day, I'm going to be coordinating along with the music helper that the DBA has been working with, the music sign-off or the announcement that happens at 10 to 3, which is thank you for coming out to Pulse. It's going to be amplified through the music tents, and then with instructions for participants to move off the street and onto the sidewalk. We're hoping that this will sort of alleviate the burden of volunteers yelling and trying to physically move participants off the route. And we're also hoping that it's going to push our timeline for tear down in a quicker fashion, so that we'll be able to bring those vehicles on for 3:15 or earlier. So as soon as it's safe and most of the participants, or all of them, are off the streets and onto the sidewalks, we're going to start with tear down. Return to your designated zone. If you're not stationed in a single area, feel free to just plot yourself wherever you feel the need is most urgent. And we're going to start with tearing down those info tents. And once we tear down the info tents, we're going to roll through the entire zone and with the help of our teardown crew, and pick up any decorations that need to be picked up, and drop it all near the info tent for later collection with the cube van. So once all of the teardown activity is done, we're going to slowly but surely start removing the barricades in a coordinated fashion. Sue's going to lead that effort. And at 3:45, we want to just make a quick check that all the barricades are removed properly wherever you may be. Just make sure you check Water, Elmer, and George Street. We've advised and instructed our adopted barricade groups to remove those for us, but they might forget. So just make sure you check, and hopefully everything is as it should be, and it won't be another task to your day. So tent supply and pickup is happening hopefully around 3:20. Lindsay and Tegan will be dealing with collecting all the Pulse stuff, and Joel will probably be collecting, doing a couple rounds with tents. We're going to have teardown volunteers who will help with the loading and unloading, and then we're going to drop everything off at the DBIA. And once that's said and done, we can all sit back, relax, and have a beer. So this concludes the breakdown of your committee roles, and thank you for watching this video. Much appreciated. Look forward to Saturday, and I hope that everything goes as we had outlined. All right, take care, guys.